Howdy, 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 howdy. Well, folks, I've been meaning to make this video for a while now. It's kind of dark out, so I'll just film the waning light as it passes out of sight. I don't know. I guess I'm an idealist to an extent. I don't see anything wrong with that. But I'm a realist as well. Almost too real sometimes. It's caused some conflict in my life with myself, my own ideas on what's important. But realism as a way of life, seeing everything for what it really is, sometimes seems like the most important thing. But above and beyond that, I think, is acceptance and not building resentment and animosity towards the status quo. Each one of us has something to contribute, and we can't always see the truth behind the mask, but it's there. Each person, in their own right, sees the world through the same eyes and just has different perceptions of it. And while being a realist may be important, and really seeing things and being honest with yourself, being acceptant is more important. And also having faith, positivity. And I'm not talking about faith in a man in the sky. I'm talking about faith that there is reason and rhyme behind why things happen the way they do. But beyond that, even if you don't, even if you think that everything's by chance, you still have to agree that there's a proper way to treat one another. A proper way to behave when we're in public. A proper way to raise each child in his own right and to his own ends. And to accept each person for their individual talents, traits, shortcomings, strengths, weaknesses, everything about a person that makes them who they are. And having a little bit of truth behind what you know can really go a long way. But it can only take you so far. You reach a point where the mind swarms with ideas about what could be. Fears start to creep in. I've found that it's like a parasite. Everything is like a parasite. The mind conditions itself. It has like a reflex muscle memory, just like within the body, just like an athlete that works hard to build his muscle memory to shoot hoops or to kick a football. The brain starts to develop neural pathways, new neural connections when you believe a certain thing or feel a certain thing that reinforce that belief in order to help you survive. And it's part of a human nature. So the more we become acceptant just of what is, not as a weak people, but as a strong people who understand that there is a purpose. It may not be understandable. It's most likely not understandable by anyone. I truly find life to be the most wondrous thing. And every time I sit down to make a video, I think of how cool it is to be able to sit here and talk to people that are far away. Excuse me. And really be able to bear witness to the fruition of a new form of humanity, a new society. So it leads me to the purpose of this video, which I will probably reflect in the title, which is what happened in 2012. You know, that date came and went, and it was most likely nothing. But it's funny because the time of December 21st, I think, coincided with a lot of people's large movements spiritually in the world. And there were a lot of mass migrations of people to go to certain monuments and beacons of ancient history to try to pay homage to the unknown and to the mysteries. And while that's been around for a long time, it's never picked up as much pace as it has recently. And that fervor, that new age fervor, has almost reached a ludicrous point in some circles. However, when we stand back from what we think is true, or what we've been told about ancient peoples and aliens and all that stuff, we stand back and just look at it for what it is, gain a new understanding of it, and realize that it's not really the ancients that people are seeking. It's that mystery, that mystery of what could be and what powers the humans may have. So, anyway, this year has been a big year for me spiritually. Over the last 6-8 months, since last fall sometime, I've gone through a metamorphosis where I've been able to finally collect, process, analyze, and put to work all of the data that I've spent 20 years accumulating in my life. All the books I've read on truth, on lies, spirituality, politics, money, nature, construction, you name it. Everything that I've used to contribute to my knowledge, I've finally been able to put to work. And it's only been over the last year when I've really been able to do something with it that I feel has actually changed my life. And the number one thing that I've done is learn to love. And not just love in a wishy-washy sense. We all know that's not what it is, but it's love in a sense of unconditional love for nature and for everything that happens. And a lot of people go overboard when something happens, something bad, and they just can't get over it. Whether it be a family member dying, or a storm that takes down their house, or even something as mundane as losing a job that someone didn't even like in the first place. Instead of using these as a new spring, a new beginning, or celebrating the life of the person, let's say, if in the case of a death, people choose to grieve and choose to hang on to these negative issues. And once you let them go, your entire life becomes a complete relief. You can just take a sigh and just let all of that negativity go. There's no room for it anymore. We're way too exposed to way too much information. And I, for one, feel like I'm just constantly immersed in it. But only over about the last 6 months have I finally been able to, like I say, assimilate all of that knowledge and put it to a lifestyle that works consistently, in my mind, to better my life. And that's why I make these videos. It's not out of arrogance. It's not out of pride or ego. I'm not trying to be condescending or directing or market to anyone, or advertise or tell anyone how to live. I try really hard not to. I try really hard to put things in a form that says this is what works for me, and this is what doesn't work in society. But I try to never say something like, you should do this because I do it. That's not the kind of person I am, and there's a lot of that in society. And that's why you have to try not to be that kind of person, because it's like a person tends to point the finger and say, why don't you like this? Why don't you like that? I get all kinds of people that are surprised I don't say like something like onions and tomatoes. It's just something I don't like. Some people do, some people don't. Some people hate fish. I love salmon. It goes to so many aspects, and that's the big thing. The big thing in my life that I've found is once I learned to really not just respect, not just accept or tolerate, but completely love each person for who they are and their own attributes and what they have to offer. For example, having a debate with someone that's a completely different person than you are online, and instead of letting it get to you, just letting it go, because you're bound to have something in common, some sort of a common ground. And even if you don't, then you're going to be learning from each other. I've noticed on YouTube there's a lot of people lately that have been making videos about other people, and it makes and I realize why, and it's because the people are getting to each other. So instead of processing this, because they choose to get angry and try to say, well, this person blocked me, or this person did this or that, or said this about me, and then the person makes a video back, and it's not productive. And I understand why it's done, because I've been tempted to do it about people sometimes too. But there's a common ground between even the biggest, and it takes two to tango. So there's a common ground somewhere, a common thread that each person needs to find. And if you can find that common thread, then you can weave a beautiful tapestry together. I've really enjoyed the company of some folks that are completely different than me. Like what a lot of folks may call hillbillies or hicks or backwoods folk, or inbreds, or all the derogatory terms people have. I try not to be like that. I try to say, hey, I understand we're all a product of our environment, and each one of us grows up with our own perspective, and I digress. This video is supposed to be about the changes I've gone through, and what I think about 2012. And I guess my point on that part, before I forget, is that it's not about the date. Most likely December 21st meant nothing to anything or anyone, and my belief, my honest thought, was that if it can coincide with anything, it's going to be the the peak of what we call civilization, which is in our minds the highest point in our civilization, and in nature's mind the lowest point, because we're the most materialist, which is what we value. And if you can overcome that materialism, which I think a lot of people are, then you're doing a very good service to mankind. And I don't say that lightly, because I know how hard it is to abandon all the fucking cool stuff out there. Pardon my French, but seriously, our our parents, of those of us, I'm 37, our parents when they were growing up, those who grew up in the 50s and whatnot, they a lot of them were kind of turned off by technology, or maybe their parents, say my grandparents. Like, oh, we don't need that fancy new stuff, the TV and the radio or whatever. And now, if you don't use technology, you're just the outcast, the freak. And in today's world, when there's so much of it and it's moving so fast, to be able to not worry about whether your cell phone has internet capability, or not have to have an iPad. I've never even used an iPad. And I'm sure they work great for the people who have them. I'm not dissing. And I have no problem with technology. I think it's fine. But what I'm saying is that by seeing so many people move away from it, it shows a certain desire of society to get back to the old ways. And, the 80s were the material age. I mean, that was the decade of materialism. The 80s, excess, cocaine and parties and bright clothes. And now, just 3 decades later, we're going back to nature. The bright clothes have tamed themselves, and we wear more earthy tones, and there are a lot more groups of people who are inclined to act appropriate, I guess. But that's what I've learned. And in the last year, I've probably doubled my capability of handling life. And I've been working at it mentally really hard, because I've felt since I was young, ever since I was back in high school, that I had a purpose. And it sounds cheesy, but I've talked to others who have a similar story. But I've always felt that I'm going to be part of some sort of a movement, and that I'm going to be, have to be called upon to be a helper, a leader of some sort, to help society along, whether it be just helping a couple people or something. I feel like I'm going to have something happen in my life where I'm going to be called upon to use what I know, whatever it may be. I shouldn't say leader, that's not a good term, but to lead the way in a certain situation. And so I try to arm myself with as much knowledge as I can, so when that time comes, if it comes, I'll be able to act accordingly. And to me, that's not just like street smarts, but it's farming smarts. It's knowing basic principles of chemistry and nature and plants and herbs and healing and medicine and all kinds of things. And I've become kind of a jack of all trades. And anyway, in the last year, I've been able to really assimilate all that knowledge and put it into a format that works for me. And I will never use the term shaman, because that has so many connotations with it. But I wanted to be a shaman a few years back, and then when I read up enough about it, I realized that everyone's a shaman. It's not something you become. Just like you don't become a guru, or you don't become a spiritual leader. You just help other people along the way. It's not about being better or knowing more or wearing fancy robes. It's about being the average person who walks down the street, knowing inside who they are, and knowing that you've acted the best you can in every day of your life, and that you've made mistakes, but it's okay. And I fuck up all the time. It's one of the biggest issues I still have to work out is figuring out how to motivate myself to assimilate into my the modern society, into my life, to where I want to be a slave to the grindstone, so to speak, because I hate it. I do. And I'm learning by taking the day-to-day approach that I can really accommodate all sorts of harsh labors and I don't know, things I have to do into my life without fearing it or worrying or thinking into the future too much. It's I guess to sum it up, it's about living in the now, and at the same time having a part of your brain that's constantly processing the future, but without worry. It should come into your mind and it should go. It should be a fleeting thought. Oh, I have to do this tomorrow. Boom. And you shouldn't, you don't even need an alarm clock if you're good at, if you get your biological system working right, People know what I'm talking about. But you're in control of your destiny. You're in control of everything that happens to you. So just remember, no matter what the government does, no matter what your neighbors do, no matter what your local community is like, when you're in your own home, if you have a home, hopefully, you have to take time to sit back and appreciate nature, appreciate life, relax, know who you are, where you are, and assimilate everything into your life. Because I don't care if you believe in heaven, I don't care if you believe in reincarnation, I don't care if you just believe in death and that's it. It doesn't matter what you believe. May or may not happen after we die. The fact is, for right now, we're all here together, and we have some big shoes to fill to live up to the expectations of those who came before us. So hopefully everyone else has had some sort of a change that's happened to them in their life to where they can, gain something from it that they can take with them for the rest of their life. Because you might spend a year working on your personal growth, but it's going to give you a lifetime of of good thoughts to go by. So I guess I'm going to go now. It's been great rambling to the camera, even though I'm filming this guy. But namaste, everybody.